Huge weekend in TCU athletics. TCU basketball goes on the road, knocks off Kansas State. The women got a win over Cincinnati. 10 men's tennis. They're playing for an indoor national title today. Their third straight if they can get it done at 11 a.m. Oh, baseball got a sweep of Florida Gulf Coast, and we'll talk some football as well. All that coming up next here on Locked On Horned Frogs, your team every day.
You are Locked On Horned Frogs, your daily podcast on the TCU Horned Frogs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
That's right, Locked On Horned Frogs, your team every day. As I ran down there in the open, big weekend for TCU athletics. Please subscribe to the YouTube channel or wherever it is you listen to podcasts. That's the best way to keep up with Locked On Horned Frogs. We try to bring you all the information we can on a weekly basis, 5 days a week. We have shows going on, but tough to know where to start. TCU baseball, they get a sweep in opening weekend. Of course, we're always keeping tabs on the football team as they go through the offseason, but we'll start with the TCU men's basketball team because they come up with a huge win against Kansas State. They come back, they beat the Wildcats 75-72, and if you missed it, Jameer Nelson Jr. hit a crazy double pump. He kind of contorted his body, hit a three at the buzzer, essentially at the buzzer. There was 1.1 seconds left when he hit that shot. The game was tied. He hits a fall-away three, and that was the game winner. Now, after the game, Jamie Dixon said Kansas State switched to zone. Jerome Tang made a nice adjustment on their final possession. They just suddenly broke out of zone defense as they hadn't been running the rest of the game. So it kind of confused TCU. It looked like they were trying to get Emmanuel Miller the ball with a chance to maybe for him to go ISO there. But that didn't work out. And so it was sort of a fire drill towards the end. Nelson dribbled the ball the other side of the floor. He was on the right side of the floor. He dribbled to the left. And then Chuck O'Bannon was running behind him. And I don't know if he was looking for a dribble handoff. I'm not sure what his plan was, but he ended up running behind him as Nelson was going up. So he shot the ball falling away, and he kind of had to arch his back or contort his body to avoid colliding with Chuck, but somehow hit the shot. I saw Jace Posey say after the game, he's a freshman on the TCU basketball team, hasn't played this year, but he's an exciting freshman that I'm sure is going to get a lot of minutes moving forward. And he said that he's seen Jameer working on that shot in the practice facility, which my first thought is exactly like that. I mean, I could see working on fall away threes or kind of desperation threes off the bounce, maybe in certain situations. But the way he had to sort of twist and move his body around to avoid a collision was interesting. But bottom line was he hit the shot. Frogs win 75-72. It was an adventure down the stretch trying to close out that game as it typically is. Free throws betrayed them again. A lot of instances down the floor where they hit 1 out of 2. Micah Peavy was trying to get the ball to Trey Tennyson late in that ball game when they're up 2. Tennyson's their best free throw shooter, trying to get him the ball so he can salt it away. And he threw the ball out of bounds. K-State ends up hitting 2 free throws on what I thought was a pretty weak foul call on the inbounds play. It looked like the Frogs had forced a 5-second violation, but they called a hold on Jameer Nelson Jr. Against Tyler Perry, who was trying to get open and get the ball. And that was one of the stories of the day. I mean, there was just whistle after whistle. The rest were calling it really tight. TCU had 6 fouls in the second half within the first 10 minutes of the ball game. But Kansas State makes the free throws. And I guess the only good thing about that was it gave the Frogs 15 seconds to go down and actually have a possession. Now, I don't think that was the shot they wanted, but they hit it, and they got to run down the clock and get that final shot, knock it down, get out of Manhattan with the win. Now, Kansas State, they were 5-6 going into that game in conference play. They end up being 5-7 after that loss. So, listen, this is not the team last year that went to the Elite Eight. They lost their best player earlier in the season. But I'll say this, that's a really tough place to play. The Octagon of Doom is what they call it. It's a tough place to win. It's tough to win on the road in general in the Big 12. And I saw Ryan Gilbert, who covers Kansas State for 247 Sports. He had one of the Wildcats assistant coaches on before that ball game. And I saw this video clip on Friday, and they were basically like, listen, this is a must win for us. If we want to make it in the tournament, we have to win this ball game. So we've been telling our guys all week, you better come out with a lot of energy. You need to come out and play well. And we have to find a way to win this game. So going on the road and winning a game in Manhattan is super impressive to me. I mean, you know, it's been kind of an up and down year for Jamie Dixon's squad, but I thought this was a gut check win, a good win, and the type of win that I said before. If you're going to be a team that finds a way to win 10 or 11 conference games, which I don't know if they can do that down the stretch because the schedule gets tougher here as we sort of hurdle towards the end of the season. But this is the type of game you have to win. It's difficult. It's tough to win on the road, tough environment, but you got to get it done. And I can't believe I've gone, 5 minutes here without talking about really the star of this game, who was Micah Peavy. I talked a lot this year about his development. Micah Peavy came from Texas Tech a few years ago and was, one of the exciting transfers they brought in. His first year, really, he was so limited scoring the ball. Couldn't shoot, wasn't a spot-up shooter, wasn't super effective off the dribble either. I mean, his game was he was a lockdown defender, and so he was going to guard the best perimeter player, and he did that well. And there were games, they had a big win against Texas Tech at home a few years ago where they called on Micah to play great defense on the other team's best player. And that's what he did. He did his job super well. Last season made some improvements, but still really struggled to shoot the basketball and score. He has turned himself into a legitimate scoring threat from all three levels. I mean, he's not a great three-point shooter. He might never be, but he's at least a good enough jump shooter at this point in his career that teams can't just sag off him and leave him alone like they used to. Like, they have to respect the fact that he can catch the ball and shoot. And he has gotten so good at putting the ball on the deck and finding a way to get to the rim. He's got some, I mean, it's kind of, he's very herky-jerky when he gets inside at times, and it doesn't always look super smooth. He's extremely athletic, and sometimes he has some great finishes. He had an up and under on the baseline Saturday where he caught the ball on the baseline, dribbled with his left hand, like went up and under and finished, and that was really smooth. And sometimes he kind of gets in the post, and he's got these awkward sort of herky-jerky motions, but he finds a way to get the angle that he needs to get it off the glass and get buckets. He had 26 points in this ball game. He was 8 of 16 from the field, 2 of 3 from 3. But let me tell you, TCU was down by 8 points in the second half. And the basketball social media team actually put a video out on Twitter about this. They're down by 8 points. They just had a turnover, lazy pass. Kansas State steals it, dunk on the other end. Frogs take a timeout because things are getting out of hand. And there's 12 minutes left, I think, in the game at that point. Micah Peavy took over that ball game. Like, it wasn't Emmanuel Miller. It wasn't Trey Tennyson or Jameer Nelson Jr. or Avery Anderson. Micah Peavy was their best scorer. And he was getting to the line. He was getting layups. He hit a few jumpers. Like, it was his show. And he ran it to the point that he came off the floor with about 4 minutes left. And this is something I didn't think I would ever really say in his career. But he came off the floor with about 4 minutes left. And I thought to myself, who's going to score for this team? Like, without Micah in the lineup, who's going to score? Because everybody had sort of struggled in the second half of that ball game, except for him. But they ran the offense through him for a while, and he was fantastic. And he got it done, was great for the Frogs. Emmanuel Miller had 10 points, and those were only the two guys in double digits. I mean, pretty balanced effort. Xavier Court continued his good run of, good minutes. He had 7 points in 16 minutes. Also, Micah had a couple blocks against Kansas State. I mean, he just did everything in that comeback in the second half, and he was outstanding. So they play Texas Tech tomorrow at 8 o'clock in Lubbock. That's obviously a tough game. Ernest Uday also went down with an injury late in the first half of that ball game. So I'm not sure what his prognosis is, if he's going to be able to play. Warren Washington, the Tech big man, I believe he'll be available, and he was really good against TCU in that first matchup in Fort Worth. So if you don't have Uday, then that's going to be a big loss. And you saw late in that ball game, or really in the second half of that ball game, Kansas State, they stopped settling for jumpers, and it was smart what they did, but they just started going to the rim because they knew, okay, their rim protector's out. Like, there's an opening. We can get some buckets here on the inside. And so they were having a lot of success getting to the rim, getting easy looks, getting efficient looks with Uday out of the ball game. So hopefully he'll be good to go. But yeah, big win for Jamie Dixon's squad as they get it done over Kansas State 75-72. And the TCU women, Madison Connor back in the lineup from an MCL injury, and she picked up right where she left off, had 31 points on 9 of 22 shooting, 7 of 15 from three. It's almost 50% from the 3-point line. The team shot really well overall. Frogs win 79-72 over Cincinnati on the road. They're now 3-11 in conference play. Just a really good game all around. And I saw Ray Cartwright, who covers women's basketball and other sports for Frogs today, and then he's also part of the Lepton Drinking Club, and they do a lot of great baseball coverage. But he said Madison Connor was back Saturday, and she had a really good day scoring the ball. And then Sedona Prince possibly back this week. So the team's getting healthier again. Sydney Harris has been outstanding in their absence. And, man, if they can find a way – she had 27 points off the bench in that game against Cincinnati. If they can find a way to get Connor, Prince, and Harris all in that lineup together at the same time for an extended period of time, I'm not sure they'll be able to make a run because they've, dug such a hole here, obviously, with all the injuries and the losses piled up. But that's a good team. Like those three players, those three scoring options will be a lot of fun to watch. So they can find a way to get those three on the court together this year, then that'll be fantastic. When we come back, we'll talk some TCU football and more. Locked On Horned Frogs, it's your team every day. If you are in the business of hiring people, LinkedIn is the place to go. LinkedIn.com/LockedOnCollege. When you're hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals that are right for the role. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. They have the tools you need to find the right professionals for your business. LinkedIn is not just another job board. They have a vast network, more than 1 billion professionals. That's a huge number, which makes it the best place to hire. But you don't have to get overwhelmed with that number because they can narrow it down quickly with screening questions and other tools they have available. In fact, 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. So they do it fast. You don't have time to waste, especially when you're hiring folks. Use LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn knows that small businesses are wearing so many hats and might not have the time or resources to hire. They're constantly finding ways to make the process easier. 2.5 million small businesses use LinkedIn for hiring. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnCollege. Again, that's linkedin.com/LockedOnCollege. You can post your job for free there. Terms and conditions do apply. LinkedIn, it's the name to know when it comes to hiring, folks. LinkedIn.com/LockedOnCollege. Back here on Locked On Horned Frogs, I want to mention before we get into some football talk here on the show, TCU Mens Tennis. They are in the finals of the ITA Indoor National Championships. Now, depending on when you listen to this, they play at 11 a.m. today against Ohio State. And so there's a decent chance that the match will be in progress or might even be over by the time you get here. But I did want to say, David Roditi and his squad, good luck. Fantastic outing. So if you don't know how college tennis works, you have a doubles point to start the match. So three doubles teams face off each other in separate matches. And whoever wins the best 2 out of 3 gets the doubles point. And then you have 6 singles matches. So 6 individual matches across courts. And whoever gets the most points out of those matches wins it all. So TCU, the last 2 times out, they're playing Ohio State today. They had Wake Forest in the semifinals and Texas A&M in the quarterfinals. And in both the quarterfinals and the semifinals, they lost the doubles point, which is significant because you're looking for 4 points to win the match. And obviously you get that advantage in doubles and you don't have to win as many singles matches. But they dropped the doubles point. They somehow found a way to win 4 of the singles matches in both matchups and finish it off and advance to the finals. So going for a three-peat today in the ITA Indoor National Championships. I said this yesterday on Twitter. I was like, TCU is a indoor tennis and rifle school. My friend Byron Bailey mentioned that equestrian was also really good. And, I mean, I was joking around. Baseball has been great. Basketball and football have had their great success through the years as well. But probably the most consistent sports on campus lately have been men's tennis and the rifle team The men's tennis team has been outstanding in these indoor tournament situations, and they're going for another title today. So good luck to them as they take on Ohio State at 11 a.m. Central Time. On Friday, I talked about TCU. The over-under, according to FanDuel, for TCU football is 7.5 wins. And I think they're going to hit the over, but I think it's going to be tight. I have them at 8 wins right now, just looking at the schedule early on, projecting these different teams. But I threw that out there and got a lot of responses, so wanted to get after it and just kind of see what you guys said. Zoom Play says he thinks TCU has a chance of going undefeated. I would love to see it. I mean, I don't think there'll be a game where they're just completely overmatched this year. I don't see undefeated. I think there's too many new faces, too many moving parts. But, hey, I love the confidence as always, man, and thank you for chiming in on the show. You were right a couple of years ago when nobody thought they could do that. They went on a great run. Tommy Fisher said he thinks they'll be all right. He expects 8 to 9 wins if they get to 10, which he totally thinks they can. He'll be really happy, and that would probably put them in the Big 12 championship game. TCU should be in that area or in that role 3 out of the 5 years in the new Big 12 championship conference. Yeah, I agree with that for the most part. I mean, I think there's definitely a chance for them to be one of the standard bearers and just one of the teams that is in Arlington year in and year out, and I hope that's the case. I feel like this year is going to go a long way in sort of sorting out the trajectory of the program, because if you can stabilize things and get it to a place where you're winning consistently again, the momentum's back, then I feel like that's going to permeate through every aspect of it and help recruiting. And, one question I have for Sonny Dykes and his staff, at what point, and hopefully, I mean, they've brought in some good recruiting classes from the high school ranks. This is year 3. Hopefully we're going to start to see those guys contribute. But I'm not sure how consistent you can be if you're having to turn over your roster through the transfer portal each and every year. I think you can stabilize a pretty good level of success, but I just think it's going to be tough to win championships year in and year out if you're always having to find a lot of new faces to come in and contribute right away. Now, they've pivoted a little bit in how they're doing that, and they've gone after guys this year in the portal or this offseason in the portal that have a track record of success and played a lot of snaps and have experience. But to me, that's one of the big questions for the program moving forward is sort of how they approach roster building, and can they get to a place where these high school recruits are also contributing on a yearly basis. Let's see who else chimed in. Jacob Langford said, I'm not risking my kids' college fund on betting the TCU win total ever again. Yeah, I got it. I get you, man. I mean, I had so much optimism for last year. It didn't really work out, but is what it is. Tim says, now that we TCU fans are off our high horse, we're going to be in for a surprise like last year. They went to the Natty. Just go along with the ride. I mean, they do seem to do better when there's low expectations. I don't really know what the secret to that is or what the formula is, but they've always been a program that seems to kind of jump up and surprise you when people don't expect a lot from them. So I would love to see that again this upcoming season. Matt Clark said, low expectations and no Texas or Oklahoma should get you 2 more wins. Reasonable is 7 wins, 15% chance we get to 8 wins, 5% chance we get more than 8. Too many new faces for me to get very excited. Would love to be wrong. Yeah, I mean, I get it. I get the cause for concern with all the changing faces and new people on the roster. I think the biggest thing is, can the O-line come together quickly and be a good cohesive unit? And then how quickly can the defense get adjusted and improve? Because I don't feel like it's going to be a huge stretch for them to just be better than they were last year. But can they, at some point in the season, take another step and really, get to a place where they're holding teams to under 25 a game, something like that, where if the offense is efficient and doing their job, then you should have a chance to win just about each and every game that you go out and play. And then Jim Norris said, my biggest concern is that Sonny brought back Bryles. I just don't see his talent in scheming or managing the game. I mean, it's going to be a huge year for him, kind of a put up or shut up year like it is for Sonny. And I think that he's had success in the past. He should have better weapons this year, and I think just a more cohesive offense with Josh Hoover at the helm. But Yeah, I mean, it's a fair question. Like, he wasn't good last season, and the offense wasn't very efficient, and they suffered for it. So they have to improve this upcoming year if they're going to be successful. When we come back, TCU baseball hit the field for the first time this year. They get a sweep of Florida Gulf Coast. Wasn't quite as easy as it sounds, though. We'll talk about that next here on Locked On Horned Frogs, your team every day. FanDuel, second half of the NBA season about to start. Go to FanDuel.com/LockedOn. New customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. One $5 bet, now you got to win it, but if you do, get $150 in bonus bets. FanDuel, official betting partner of the NBA. You can do parlays, you can bet on players, you can bet on teams, you can just bet on the money line itself. They also have an app that's really easy to use. FanDuel.com/LockedOn or the FanDuel app. New customers get $150 in bonus bets with any $5 winning bet. Major League Baseball around the corner as well. Football will be here before you know it, and there's a lot of futures bets, whether it being in college or the NFL, that you can get involved in on FanDuel.com/LockedOn. One $5 winning bet gets you $150 in bonus bets. FanDuel, it's where the game starts. TCU baseball's 3-0. They sweep Florida Gulf Coast. They get a win on Sunday. Final score was 11-6. They won on Friday 13-10, and then they get a victory, or excuse me, they won on Saturday 13-10, got a victory on Friday 10-9 on a walk-off strikeout, which you rarely see. But good, bad, and ugly from the first weekend of TCU baseball. So the lineup was incredible. And the lineup was really good, honestly, without Peyton Tolle, who was, a guy in the middle that they were really counting on, and Curtis Byrne, another hitter in the middle that was had high expectations this year. Both those guys kind of got off slow starts. Now, Byrne and Tolle both had some RBIs in the last few days. Tolle had a huge throw-run home run on Saturday to take the lead. But overall, the lineup was great. I mean, they did it in just about every way. Hit some home runs. Carson Bowen had 5 RBIs yesterday. Got some free bases with walks. Anthony Silva was just absolutely locked in. He was spraying the ball all over the place. Peyton Chantinier, the transfer from Ole Miss, had 2 home runs on Saturday. He was just a menace leading off, kept getting on base, kept finding a way. Logan Maxwell started seeing the ball better yesterday. Chase Brunson, the freshman, was outstanding. He was hitting the ball all over the place, had 2 home runs this weekend, had a double that he ripped over the center fielder's head yesterday. He just looked fantastic. So a lot of guys hitting the ball well to start the year. The lineup looks as advertised. Now, Florida Gulf Coast bullpen was really bad. I mean, once they got out of their starting rotation, they just didn't have much depth with their arms, and it showed, and TCU was able to jump all over those guys. But 2 huge comebacks. I mean, you saw the grit and the toughness. They got down by 6 runs on Friday night, 9-3. They got down by 7 runs on Saturday, which is not a great recipe for success. Like, I don't think that's super sustainable, but they were able to scratch and claw and fight and get back and win those games. On Friday night, Anthony Silva hit a home run. Brunson hit a home run to cut it to 9-5, but it was still 9-5 going into the 8th inning when they exploded for 4 runs. Loaded the bases, nobody out, were able to get some guys across the plate. And then in the 9th inning, Chantinier got on base. He stole second with 1 out. And who was up there? Oh, Jake Basher was up there, the transfer from Pepperdine. He was up there in a pinch hit situation in the 9th inning, or he was a defensive replacement that he had to hit in the 9th inning. And he struck out, but the ball went to the backstop. He ran down to first base. The catcher tried to throw him out, threw the ball wide, and Peyton scored from second base. He just kept running. He scored from second base on a walk-off win. They reviewed it for runner's interference. Looked like it might have been runner's interference, but they ended up leaving the call, calling him safe, and Frogs win. Got down by 7 runs on Saturday, had a furious comeback, capped off by Peyton Tolle's 3-run home run in the 8th inning. They gave them a 12-10 lead. They tacked on 1 more run to get a 13-10 lead, and then Ben Abelt came in and closed out the game. But the lineup looked great. I mean, you saw the toughness and the ability to just, okay, let's keep playing. Things aren't going our way. We're going to keep going. The ugly from the weekend, the starting pitching was just bad. I mean, it was. Now, it's one weekend. It can get better. but it was not good. Peyton Tolle struggled on Friday night. Now, we got off to a really good start, was scoreless for the first 3 innings, and then things kind of imploded on him in the 4th as Florida Gulf Coast put up a 4 spot. And there was some bad defense. Ryder Robinson had a ball get by him that ended up being a double. It scored 3 runs and kind of broke the game open. Anthony Silva dropped a line drive on Saturday that led to a few runs in a situation where he could have limited the damage. The third base was an adventure all weekend. Silva's, of course, at shortstop, but Jake Basher came in and had a rough day at third base on Sunday. Ryder Robinson looked like a freshman the first 2 days of the season. So I'm not sure what the solution is going to be there, but the defense and the pitching, at least the starting pitching, wasn't good. Cole Klecker got touched up on Saturday, gave up a couple home runs. Zach Morris battled through 4 innings and gave up 5 runs, but he also gave up some long balls. Now, Florida Gulf Coast is a good team. They won 40-plus games last year. They've got power, but I expected better from the starting pitching on opening weekend at home. Did have some bright spots in the bullpen, though. Zach Coyer was really good. The MCC transfer, he came in a couple tough situations and got out of it. Braden Sloan, who made some starts on Tuesdays last year, he was effective. Benet Belt looked really good in his 1 inning of work. So if they can progressively get the starting pitching to a good place, then I feel good about where they're at. Not going to make a lot of big proclamations about this team after 1 weekend. Bottom line is they got the sweep. They took care of business and a lot to improve on, which is kind of best case scenario for a coach in a lot of ways, because he can, keep that intensity up and say, hey, we did some good things, but we got a lot of work to work on this upcoming season. We'll be back tomorrow. It's Locked On Horned Frogs, your team every day. We're free and available wherever it is you get your podcast.